Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar show that talks about all things essence, where we hear people's journeys, like we're sitting around the campfire and we hear these journeys and stories of people's evolution to figure out who they are and what they're here to do. And they're tapping beyond the veil, those mystical moments we love to share so we can get excited and inspired. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love to host these conversations. I love this topic of essence and what is it and all that it raises up for us to consider. And I love being a part of raising human consciousness on this planet at this time. It's such an honor and a gift. And to bring that to you so that you can be lifted out of the darkness, so that you can be lifted onto your path and into your knowing of who you are in truth and love. And so that's why I share all these stories on Soul Nectar Show, and I'm so delighted that you're here with us. Today, I'm really delighted to have Chella Diaz with us. Welcome, Chella.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Chella knew at a very young age that she was different from other kids. She was able to see and feel things other kids could not. She didn't want to stand out, so she put her gifts to sleep. How many of us can say that for sure? She was married for 17 years and has 2 sons, and for over 10 years, she's been on her spiritual journey. As you know, that journey awakens us, it calls. So the list of certifications and programs she's completed is quite extensive, and I know that you guys resonate with this. Reiki master, Reiki teacher, starlight energy, and her most recent, which brought all her certifications together in a powerful way, 7th dimension healing energy. Chella has been hosting Transcend abundance workshops to empower people to master their money skills, because we are in the 3rd dimension and we do need that thing called money. Chella is a vessel for 7th dimensional healing energy, and she meets every client where they are and provides the tools they need to get them to where they want to go. So beautiful. So welcome, Chella.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a phenomenal job reading that. I could feel it. I was flowing with it.
I love it. I love actually introducing people. That's why they let me do it at the Evolutionary Business Council this year. Because they said, Carrie, you already know how to introduce people. Here's the script. I got it. So tell us, I love sharing people's stories, as vulnerable as you're willing to be, of your awakening process, that journey of starting off awake and then putting yourself to sleep and then, coming back. What was that like for you?
It was very much a checklist I was just a checklist, right? I checked it, everything that I wanted to do. I was basically checking off the box, and which was fine, but I found that kept me busy, right? So it kept the mind busy, and so that it didn't really allow me to feel. But after my divorce, it was just, I couldn't hide it, right? And that's when I started. I was going to go into a high pressure job position in sales. So I went in and I thought, well, I need to do something so that I don't let stress get to me. So that was my thinking. So I started taking yoga classes, became a yoga teacher. And that's when I started to begin to understand that if I keep the mind busy, then it does not allow me to feel the emotions and feelings that are ready to come out. And
yeah,
so
that
then,
mind is super tricky, isn't it?
yes.
It's the illusion of Earth.
Yeah. And so we keep ourselves busy. And so then after I stopped and really allowed myself to feel some of those emotions, it was a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Okay, take out the little. It was a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, take out the little. It's no small stuff. It's a big deal.
Yeah. So my first one that I did it's called a 6-month intensive, where we met 3 weeks out of the month, and then every Wednesday. So we were off one. And it was just about really getting raw and really figuring out what are those emotions? Why are we not allowing ourselves to feel that? And so that was truly the beginning of my journey. And then after that, I started with the Reiki and all. But throughout that, it's about what I learned about myself. And also the interesting thing was that how your people around you change, right? Because as you keep moving, I find, well, for me, I couldn't live in both worlds. I couldn't live And there's nothing wrong with partying. There's nothing wrong with drinking. But if that's all you're doing, day in and day out, I couldn't hang with that crowd and then hang out with the people that were doing the meditations.
Yeah,
So for a
that's so
while there.
true. It requires a shift in your whole life, actually. And some of those friendships come back. I've noticed some of them come back, but they don't come back. They don't come back. Maybe there's a little bridge for them to be part of your life, but
Right.
if they're still in their dynamic and they haven't fully crossed over, it's like maybe one day will happen. So you keep this tenuous thread there, like thinking maybe one day this friend will come along. But it is a journey. Like you said, being with your emotions, so many people avoid feeling of all kinds. They could just try to suppress it, deny it, distract from it. Alcohol, opioids, drugs, just trying to
Food,
shut it down.
right. Food. And that's what I found, right? But also when I first discovered, I wanted to share it with everybody. So that was my biggest lesson, right? Because now
Yeah.
you're on this happy joy, you just jumped off, the mountain, and you want everybody to, you're on that high and you want everybody to join you. It's like, you got to, but that's the biggest. And it took me a while to learn that, but it's until that person is ready to jump off the mountain, there's nothing we can do to help them to get there.
No, being sober, you get more high. But nobody who's drinking or partying believes you. They think you're full of it because they just see being sober as difficult
Right.
because of because when you first go sober, where you say, I'm not going to distract. And I mean sober in all ways. Like, I'm not going to watch television. I'm not going to distract myself. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to, fill up and overeat. I'm not going to, like whatever your things are that you do to kind of avoid it.
You just
When you first stop those things, yeah, it's kind of big.
Yep.
It is big.
And also the way you relate, right? Because you're a totally different, vibrating differently.
Yeah,
So
I was never in myself. Like, I was just absent in my thought. Like, I'd be having a conversation and like words coming out of my mouth. I don't even know what I'm saying. Like, who am I? I don't even know. That still happens today, but I'm channeling. That's a whole
right.
different thing. But, it's kind of like to be present. I think we're really talking about is presence.
It's about really being enjoying the moment, right? It's about allowing ourselves to be right here, right now. And one of my biggest, it was not a challenge. It seemed to be a challenge at the time was when I was guided to move to Portland, Oregon. I lived in California my whole life, and I was guided to move to Portland. I had never been, and I did not know anybody. And so I got rid of everything, packed up my car, and I drove to Portland, Oregon. Right? And people see that as brave, but to me, I saw that as an adventure. It's not a challenge, it was an adventure. And I was so glad to be doing it. And the person that I became, how much baggage I released while I was in Portland was unbelievable. Nobody could have prepared me for that. Because I let go so much of what do people think. When you find yourself in a new place,
You
you
can
don't know
reinvent.
anybody. Yeah. Yeah. So it
Nobody
was
has
really marvelous.
expectations of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
was
learned how to
so
do that in my life. Did you grow up the whole time in California and then, oh wow. Okay, yeah, so that was really your first big move.
correct. Not only
Wow.
even taking it further, I lived within a 50-mile radius my whole life.
Wow. Nobody lets you change in that environment. They're like, no, we know who you are and we know who you've been like since the moment you were born. So there's like no wiggle room to become.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't have that experience, Chella. I moved so many times when I was a kid. And for me, it was like, wow, I would leave friends. Like I would go and I would have to move now. And I would leave my friends and then go to another town and have to make friends all over again and figure out like you could always see the dynamics in the town, like who's the cool kid, who's not, who's like everyone thinks isn't cool, like it's kind of like their self-created matrix of like who's cool and who's not. And you have to like tap into that and see like how to navigate it and, be part of this whole system, so that was my experience. But you got to do that in Portland. That's kind of cool.
I did. And it was very short. I was not there for very long. And then I was guided to move to Orange County. But you know what I mean? So I'm writing a chapter. There's a book that's going to be coming out in May about that experience, about that blind trust and having faith. And knowing that, what I received was so powerful. And that's where I received my gifts for 7-dimension healing.
See, you would have never known why, if you don't listen to the call. This is one of the things I'm writing about too, is like, if you don't listen to the call within you and you let your ego dismiss it as preposterous, then you miss the opportunity for something amazing to happen that you could have never predicted from your personality self.
Yeah, it's about, we all have that little voice, right? It's about learning to listen to it and trust it, even if it makes no sense whatsoever.
And you think, okay, so the little voice, it's so funny to me. Why is the voice so little? Like, why is it so freaking subtle? Like, only one time have I had the voice in my head. Like, and other people I know have had the voice like a few times, that this voice that comes in is like the masculine voice. It's like, in my case, I was getting ready to look into like all these past life regressions and things. And I was good. So in other words, I was getting ready to take a huge detour on what was the next part of my life that I was trying to avoid it. I think at some level I knew something really yucky was about to happen. And I was like, I just want to go around that and go over here. And I went to this past life regression session and it didn't work. So I was obsessing. I have this as a fixed center in me. So I was just like, my mind was just like, like, oh, that person just sucked. I'm going to find the best person. I'm going to look on Oprah and see like who the best person is. And I'm cycling on my cycle. And all of a sudden the booming voice, you have a life, live it. And I was like, where did that come from? Oh my God, like that's crazy, and I was like, okay. So then I put it all down and I said, oh, no more, right? I'm not going to do that. And then my whole life fell apart. Like circumstance led to circumstance. It just like dismantled the whole thing. And I learned all my karma lessons and everything. So I was trying to avoid it.
What about when we don't listen? So Portland was piece of cake. I did it. And then when I was said,
and it was a little voice that told you to go do that.
It actually was a pretty loud voice, because my stuff comes in dreams. A lot of the stuff just shows up in dreams. So I have a movie. I sometimes have 3 or 4 movies happening in my head. So it was a pretty movie. So they pretty much lay it out for me.
So you kept seeing the movie. You kept seeing the same
I kept
thing.
seeing the movie.
Like, okay, that is like a repeating sign. I'm going to go to that thing. And you can't not do it then.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then when the movie showed up and said, move to Orange County and do workshops for women, very loud. And I was like, no.
I don't want to.
Nope, don't want to. Nope, don't want to do it. And so that was also a lesson, right? Because I said no, and things were not working out as well as I thought they would. And so it took about 2 months. And then I was like, okay, I'll do it. The minute I said, yes, I'll do it. Okay. I signed up 2 contracts to write a chapter in 2 different books. I found a center to do workshops out of. And I found some phenomenal networking events. Right? So the minute I stopped fighting and I said, okay, I will, then things just line up. But to me, that's like a lesson, right? Because sometimes we think we know better than what our path is supposed to be. And, source, universe, whatever, it lets us do that, right? Like, okay, go ahead and do it your way. And then when you're done making it hard for yourself, then come back and take the easy way out. So I did fight that one. But so my things come in dreams. And also they just very strong, like there's this event that's happening tomorrow, right? So I know that I need to be there. Like my instinct is like, I need to be there. And so I'm going to go, even though it's like way out of my way. I don't know why I'm supposed to be there, but that instinct tells me I need to be there. So I'm going to be there. So it's that no matter where that is, and sometimes it doesn't make sense.
A lot of times it makes no sense.
Right. He's been like, go to this bookstore. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like, it makes no sense. Why does he need to go to a bookstore? But it's really about, on our journey, trusting that voice, whatever that, even if it makes no sense whatsoever. Go for a hike.
And not pushing through it, not disregarding it and trampling over it. Because that just leads to trouble.
And enjoying it. Allowing it and enjoying it.
Well, it can be an enjoyment. It definitely can once you start realizing that it's for you and it's leading you someplace that you need to go to understand something. If you would allow it to happen and stop trying to think you know everything.
Right.
Yeah. That's a funny thing about writing the book too is, it just came in. I felt the urge, the urging on the inside, like, okay, it's time. You got to start it. Like, just start writing it. Like, get done with this nonsense. Like, it's like, no, you're writing it now. Okay. So woke up this morning and I knew I couldn't get to my computer fast enough. I was trying to make my breakfast and it's like, hurry. I'm like, okay, I'm getting there. Okay. And it's cool. When it's
That's
like that, I love
the chapter. So the minute I said yes to the chapter, I fell asleep. I thought about it. I really want to do it. In the morning, I woke up and it took 3 hours. The chapter was done.
Like, bam.
Done.
Yeah, it's just done. It just happens like that. Like I woke up this morning, same thing. Like I was like, oh, I ask a lot of wonder questions. Like, oh, I wonder what my new book is about that I feel like I'm supposed to write this year. What is that? I wonder what that is. And then it just like, I downloaded the title and everything a couple days ago. And then today I just downloaded the first chapter. It's just like wrote the first chapter before our session here in like an hour and a half. Bam. Done.
Yeah, it's about, and I think that your viewers, listeners could definitely, it's about really, if there's one thing in my opinion they can take away, it's about really listening to that guidance, whatever you want to call it, the gut, the instinct, whatever. Once you begin to listen to it, don't judge it, don't compromise it, just listen to that and see where it leads you. Think of it as an adventure. Where will I go today?
And I like that you said that you went to sleep on it because that's what I did too. Like sometimes I'll sleep in. I sleep in a lot, I'll sleep in because it comes to me in dreams or it comes to me in knowing. And especially like in the waking moments in the morning, like sometimes that can stretch on for like an hour for me because I'm getting like all these downloads that then just go right into the book. So when I actually do finally sit at my desk at, 12 o'clock, like it just comes out. There's no struggle. Whereas if I had gotten up at 6 a.m. and tried to write that thing, I would have been like, oh, what am I going to say? What am I supposed to say?
Now that may work for other people though, right?
That could work for other people. It's tuning into like how you work.
Correct.
But I think a lot of people are conditioned with this, you've got to get up at a certain time and you've got to work this many hours and you can't leave your desk and all of this stuff that I actually think is more distraction than useful because I've pushed the boundary on that and threw it away and said, okay, I'm going to listen to my being and what my being's telling me. And my being's telling me I work best when I, ask the I wonder questions, give myself a lot of space and time to just kind of chill and do nothing. And then all of a sudden it's time for action. And I feel it in my body when it's time for action. Like, it's like, get to the computer now. Okay, here I am. And then it flows out and we're done.
Right. Now I do 50 minutes a lot. When I want to complete a project, I put on a timer for 50 minutes and I tell my brain, we're going to do this activity for 50 minutes and then we're going to take a break. And for me, that works because I'm the most productive. Now this, not the creative aspect of it, but when it comes to taking care of, I need to reply to emails, I need to do this, that to-do list that we need to do for our businesses, that works for me when I do a 50-minute timer.
Yeah, but the inspired stuff, it needs, it's on its own thing. Like, It's on its own schedule. Yeah, and it's learning how to weave that in together, learning how to listen, like you say, and know when it's time for the next thing. So, how did you start bringing back your gifts of channeling and energy? Was it simply through the presence that it started coming back naturally? I mean, then you remembered from your childhood and things like this, or how did that work?
Yeah, I started doing, the first one was the 6-month intensive. They just allowing my emotions to show up. And then after that, I did the Reiki. Oh, I did NLP, hypnosis, the works. And I think it's really started to come together when I received my Reiki attunement. That's when, for me, the floodgates opened up. That's when I realized, and even the teacher was like, we've never seen anybody she had never seen anybody take on the energy as powerfully, because it just like, we opened up that door and it was there. But even then, and that was 7 years ago, I knew it, I could feel it. I was doing some work with friends, but I was not ready to call myself a healer. I could do the work, but I didn't want to do it to the point where I would need to do, I don't want everybody to think so. That was the next. And that took a couple of years, finding and being okay with what will people think. You're going to be one of those woo-woo people. And so that came together for me. Yeah, I wasn't ready to be the woo-woo person. When I was young, and I'm not making this as an excuse, but this is my brain. So when I was little, I did witness somebody was very not so nice to a person because they were woo-woo or witchy or whatever you want, the things. So I did witness that. And who, what I mean? So now in 2018, when I received 7 Dimension, this was so powerful and so strong. I embodied it. And the switch went on because it's not about me, right? It's not about me and what people are going to think about me and how people are going to look at me. It's about how I am able to help others. And when that light went on, then I'm okay with being called a healer.
Yeah,
I'm
I like
owning
that you
it.
said when the light goes on, because it's not about, this is what I was talking about with the ego wants to dismiss things. The ego would just love to downplay everything. As much as it likes to pump everything up and be like, oh, I am so fantastic. A lot of people think, oh, the ego is all about like, I'm great, I am perfect, I am da da da, like that. But it can also be the other way. Like it can be self-deprecating. It can be, oh, that's not me. How could I possibly do that? It can be in that way. And that's just as damaging to your purpose as the other way, So like putting the mantle of I am healing the world, is just as like, oh, there's no way I could possibly be that, or no, I know. And there's a lot of hangups around it. But you're right. Like I actually channeling the energy and bringing it down to earth is the role and function of many people that are on the planet right now that are part of the shift on the planet. It is the function.
Yep.
And
And
so
it's
resisting
being
that,
okay, right?
yeah,
It's about
like
us
don't
coming
resist it.
together, even just how you and I met, right? We met
Yeah.
not long ago. There was immediate connection. And now, it's about how can we support each other. We both healers. We both have different gifts, but it's finding how can we come together and collaborate so that we are able to impact a lot more people.
A lot more people. Yeah, exactly. Like be the change, embody the change. So how do you see that happening for you in your role coming into this lifetime in your lineage? Like what are some of the things that you know that you've healed on behalf of your lineage?
Ooh, guilt and shame. And with the cherry on top of not feeling worthy.
Guilt and shame and not feeling worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just being okay with where you are, right? And I don't mean where you are necessarily. It's about, don't get so hung up on the material stuff. and I don't mean you, but like sometimes we believe that comes from the outside, but to me, success is when you have that, when you're able to giggle and laugh at, you know what I mean? Like sometimes in the car, I mean, I'm just sitting there and these things come to mind and there's so much joy, right? There's no amount of money you can pay. And now I'm not saying that you don't need money. I'm not saying that at all. But once you're happy and joyful, that attracts money, which is just the opposite of what people think. Is once you have the money, you're going to be happy. No, you got to be happy first and then you attract the money.
You be happy first and then you attract the money.
Right.
And have you always been sort of singing this tune of just be happy around you, like in your life?
No, I have always
Okay.
been no. I actually was very shy as a child. I was an introvert. I did not trust men. I was in one of the other books that's coming out in March. I wrote a chapter about being molested.
Mm.
And for your listeners and viewers, I've never told that story.
Mm.
And I still haven't shared that story with my siblings. I shared it with my sons. I had a conversation with them and I told them because I want them to know. But I was very an introvert. So that's part also of the journey, right? So when you talk about healing, if, you know, for the past 5 years, and that was a really great question, the amount of things that I've released within my body cells, the inner guidance has become so strong, right? Because I don't have as much weight weighing me down. Now, does the monkey chatter still show up? Yes, he does. But it's not as loud and it's not as often nowadays.
Do you
And
feel
that's the
like that
beautiful.
trauma, like when you came in and you had that trauma, like it sort of brought a lot of darkness to your life and dampened your light somehow? Like in this healing, reclaiming some of who you really are?
And that's actually really interesting because the ladies, there's 9 ladies and 1 gentleman that's writing the book. And the reason I got involved with them is because they have a healing movement. And the healing movement, it's about healing yourself, but also healing the other person. So it's not just about you, it's about healing everybody, the family unit, if you will. So I initially called them up to see if I could be of service because I wanted to support them any way that I could. And after talking to them, but you know what I mean? It's a movement. It's about making it safe to talk about this. And it's not about necessarily blaming anybody. It's about owning it, right? It's about going from the victim to the hero. It's about being okay with what happened because of the lessons that you learned, and which is, I think, a totally different take. You know, I don't feel the victim. Yes, I believe that affected a lot of the things that I did and how I did them. But now that I'm on the other side, I see why things needed to happen the way they needed to happen. And when you come to that point where you feel so much compassion and love, unconditional love for that other person, that's when you know, when they no longer can trigger you. And he's passed on. And I went to his funeral. He's passed on. But when you're able to feel that, you know that you're on the path because you're no longer being triggered by it. So I
Yeah,
think it's all part of the journey.
it is part of the journey. Actually, that's one of the things I'm realizing. You know, we get these downloads and messages. I don't know, I do. I'll just own that. I get downloads and messages about what we're here to do and what's going on in the planet and why it is that so many of us are having a common experience. And, you know, when I look at your story, I see you healing your family line of that particular human trigger of suffering, like what they call an ancestral pattern. And as we heal that in ourselves, we heal it 7 generations forward and 7 back. And so we actually effectively are together by like this healing movement you're talking about. The focus is on healing the family. Why is that? Because we want to heal the DNA. And we want to up level the human consciousness into a higher consciousness by healing these patterns that have kept it, spinning around for eons,
Yeah.
in the eye
And
for
that's
an
the
eye,
beauty
tooth
of
for
it.
a tooth crap that doesn't work.
Exactly. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it, because then you're doing something for yourself, for myself, but I'm also helping so many other people and also so many other women, right? Because
Well,
now they
because
feel safe
they feel
talking
safe.
about
They're not only just intellectually inspired by your story, but there is a part that's energetic too,
it.
because you carry the embodiment of the healing of that through
Yeah,
your vessel. And so anybody that, comes in contact with your energy body is going to receive that level of healing that you struggled for in your own life and that you claimed, and then you can pass it and transmit it energetically to others. So it doesn't take away their struggle, but it definitely provides a pathway. That's what I'm getting. It
exactly.
provides a pathway.
And
And
that's
that's what we're
exactly
here
what
to
I said.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
say
and
that
I are on the same team.
I say that I shine the light. We're in a cave together. I shine the light, but it's up to that person to do the digging, to do the work, and to find their own light.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're all operating on different bodies in different family lines and different strains of the human DNA. And so as we heal it in our own bodies, we heal it, and this is one of the things I think a lot of people that are called to service, these people I'm writing the book for, that I want them to understand is like what you're talking about. You came in to actually to experience those things so that you could do the healing, because you have the capacity. You're at the soul level. You have the capacity to handle this and transmute these energies. And is it fun? No, not
Not all the time.
not all the time, but on the other side, it's pretty awesome, because once you start getting this higher level perspective, it makes it easier to do the work, because you
Correct.
get that, you remember why it is that you came here, like, instead of just being asleep in earth amnesia.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful thing when you get to that point,
It sure
right?
is.
And everybody has a different mission. And I mean, even if you have the healing gifts, it does not mean that you need to go out and do healings. It could just mean that you're healing yourself.
Yourself, your family, and then just by being you're generating that
Correct.
healing vibration. So that's could be your whole function, just generate that
Correct.
healing vibration, period.
Exactly. And I think that's big. I mean, you and I have chosen to do this for a living, if you will, but but I come across people, I know have the gifts, but they don't want to do anything with it. And so sometimes it's just about what you said, your family, your friends, and yourself. You're leading by example. You're showing up. You're empowering
You're a point
others.
of light on the earth,
Yes,
and you are ascending the consciousness because you're part of it.
correct.
That's what a lot of people, I like people to know, is about what I've witnessed is that there is actually like a bubble of there's a collective consciousness that is, it's a thing. So like when you get into a circle of people, for example, like they say your top 7 friends are the people you hang out with influence you the most. It's true. There's like these overlapping concentric circles of consciousness, collective consciousness. And so whenever you're in a group with people, you sign up like, yes, I'm in this group. Like you signed up to be on Soul, to watch Soul Nectar. Like, yes, I opt in to be part of this. Well, now you're part of a bubble of consciousness that
Right.
is created by all the people that are being interviewed and the thoughts that are being shared and all the people that are tuning in. So you're somehow affiliated with that. You're part of it. You're being affected by it energetically.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Keep tuning in. So what now, you also deal with money, so just a couple of minutes on like, how do you help people with money? You help them to become happy and then they attract money, or what's your
It's
angle on
about
that?
it's about unleashing and discovering what the money story is.
uh
Right? Because we're all subject to that money story. What was that story? And definitely we want to leave. So I will invite your listeners to think about what was that money conversation they remember. They were kids, they were playing, maybe they were watching cartoons, maybe they were in the backyard. and adults were talking about money. What was that conversation about? Right? What was that feeling that you felt when the adults were having that conversation? And how has that conversation affect your life as an adult? So one of my favorite ones is where the parents were talking about they don't have enough money. You're laughing. The parents don't have
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
money. They don't have enough money to buy groceries. They don't have. So what I've seen is that person as an adult tends to save because they don't want to ever be in that situation. But they're drained and they have no joy because they only see that one thing. I have to save, I have to save, I have to save. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not having any fun and if you're not having any joy, you have blinders on and that's all you can see. There's no joy in that.
Yeah, that's no fun. This
Right.
is your earth experience. I mean, make of it what you will.
So I do believe that once we discover that money, what that conversation was, and we are able to link it. I think in puzzles. So once we take that piece and we're able to link it to how you're doing it now and give you different options, different choices, find out when do you shop? What's your weakness? And give you other options so that you're breaking the pattern. We want to shift the pattern so you don't do that.
Awesome.
It's so much fun.
Yeah,
But
it is.
while you do that, you discover the joy. And ultimately, that's where you want to be. Once you find that out, then you also find the joy.
Yeah, joy is, we all look for joy. I mean, joy is
Right.
priceless, right?
Yep. And
And
that's the
can you be
beauty.
joyful like if you have nothing and joyful if you have everything? Joyful if you
Correct.
have this, joyful if you have that. That's really the ultimate spiritual test, Can you be joyful no matter what?
Especially like working with women, because I believe that as women, we're givers and we're not really all that good at receiving.
She's looking at
So
me.
once, I'm not throwing any stones here, Carrie. But once we're able to switch that around, right? And you see money as just the energy flowing in and out. You see that as a fountain that's constantly being regenerated, and you feel, ask for your worth. I think that also begins to shift because the minute you do that and the money begins to flow, the joy begins to flow. But we have to find the joy first.
Yeah, the joy is necessary.
Yep.
That's
It's a beautiful
beautiful.
thing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that today too, in terms of like, you've got to be able to find your joy, however you find it, and don't ignore your body as a source of joy, I mean, like really enjoy everything that you've been given, take a look at what it's not outside of you, it's inside of you, it's everything you've already been given is the key. And to tap into, to your knowing of yourself and this physical being and this emotional spiritual being and this thing right here, that's the key. Find that within yourself.
It's about going and doing the inner work.
Yeah, it's a
Do
lot.
the
I've
inner
been on
work.
that money journey. I've had to, because when you're a healer, you get to heal that kind of stuff. You get to do that. That's part of the thing. And you get to face it. And
Yep.
it has layers. It has layers and it is like a map, like you say. Like it has layers and complexity and different threads that come in over here and then another thread over there. And then you're like, it's like a little ball, and then you're tangling pieces out and then you're sorting it. And then it's like, oh, okay, now things are working better. And it is also like energy, like you're talking about too, like there's the little stuck areas in the flow are the things you need to look at, the little stuck points. You need to
I'm actually going to borrow that.
stuck
Next
points.
time I'm going to borrow that, Carrie. Next
Yeah,
time I do a workshop, I'm going to bring a ball of yarn with lots of different pieces because that's exactly what it is.
it is. You got to pull a thread, and then there's not one fixing thing. Like you're just gonna
Correct.
fix it, But there's these pieces. You start pulling them out, and then pretty soon there's more spaciousness, right? There's more opening, and then things are flowing, and then you can kind of push through things a little easier. So
Yep.
yeah, and we're
Beautiful
all in
thing.
the ascension, and we're doing it together. So you're working your piece of the puzzle, I'm working my piece of the puzzle. It's a collective consciousness puzzle around money and what does money mean. And so, it's bigger than us, and we're here working little pieces of it that has a huge ripple effect, especially
Correct.
as you're teaching and leading. So that's
Yep.
awesome.
It's beautiful.
How people claim their power. So how
I'm
do
so
people work
delighted.
with you with their money map stuff? How do people work? How do you like to work with people? What's your favorite thing to do with people?
Favorite part would be for them to do my 7-day challenge that I have on Facebook, Transcend Abundance, because that really gets them started. It gets them thinking, and then they can check out my website, chelladiaz.com. But I like to think of myself as a very laser focused healer, because normally, about 4 sessions is all it's going to take to get you back on track.
Yeah, I
So
believe it.
yeah.
She opens the seventh dimensional portal and then things start to shift and happen. She gifted me a session, so that's how I know. One of the perks of being a host on Soul Nectar shows, you get to experience, sometimes the gifts of your people you interview and so you can talk about it. So
Yep.
yeah, it was for me, it was really powerful. It was definitely a lot of energetic shifts and emotional shifts. So I got emotional people, but that's a good sign. To me, that's a good sign when you get emotional and some stuff comes up that you didn't expect, and then it wants to bubble up and come out. That's actually a good thing. You're releasing something. So yeah.
It was a
And
beautiful thing, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying that, because everybody's going to get what they need. That's what's so magical about seventh dimension. Whatever you need, you're going to get,
I
even
love
if you don't
that.
think you need it.
Even if you don't think you need it, well, there's the rub. Now we're back on the ego. Even if I don't think I need it, I'm gonna get it for Chella. So you can see how much fun Chella is and how much we like each other. And I hope that you enjoyed this broadcast, and check out her. And we're gonna put a link to the 7-day challenge. Does it start up every so often, or what's the frequency?
There's just 7 videos, so you can do it. They can do it at any time and just reach out to
Evergreen.
leave comments.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
we'll link to that so you guys can check that out and do those videos. And then after you do those videos, come back here and post a comment, post some feedback on this interview, and tell us what you got from it. Tell us what you see. Tell us what you want to know. Questions, Chella's around, so she can always answer your questions. So you can comment on iTunes or YouTube or soulnectar.show. Anywhere you see the interview, feel free to ask some questions and give some feedback. We'd love to hear it. Right, Chella?
Absolutely. We're here to help.
We're here to help, and we'd love to help you. All right. Well, I like to give everybody kisses. Want to join me? I give everybody kisses.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. Mm.
Mm.
Hope you guys enjoyed that.
It's a pleasure.
It. Okay, love you guys. We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye.